Between 1100 and 1400, millions of people survived brutal European winters without electricity, central heating, or modern tools. They faced frostbite, starvation, and endless darkness, yet somehow endured. Their secret wasn't brute force, but ingenuity so subtle we've completely forgotten it today. Here's what medieval survival actually looked like, and why it might save your life when modern systems fail. Okay, so if you're here a lot, you know I ask for likes and subscribes, but seriously, where are you guys? Comment your location and time. Sometimes I see someone from California listening at 3 p.m. and I'm like, are you napping? We're heading to medieval Europe in a minute. First, though, get comfortable. Seriously, take a second. Adjust whatever needs adjusting. You're not going to want to move once we start. The cold hits first. Your eyes snap open to darkness and that bone-deep chill that tells you the fire died hours ago. Frost glitters on the inside of your wooden shutters. Your breath hangs visible in the air above you, not like your heated bedroom right now. No thermostat to bump up a few degrees, no electric blanket to switch on. You're wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of smoke and sheep. The straw mattress beneath you crackles as you shift. Your joints ache from the cold, fingers stiff as you pull the blanket tighter. You're gonna be late, Elric. Your brother's voice from the darkness. Somehow, he always wakes before you do. You groan as you swing your legs over the edge of your sleeping platform. The wooden floor is like ice against your bare feet. The keeper's already heading up the hill, your brother says, already pulling on his worn leather boots. Shit, not today of all days. Hold up, you mumble, your voice thick with sleep. I'm coming. You dress quickly in the dark. Woolen underclothes, rough linen shirt, leather jerkin, thick woolen hose tied at the waist. No time to eat, no time to wash. The keeper waits for no one, not even his new apprentice. You stumble out the door behind your brother into the pre-dawn darkness of the village. The sky holds just enough light to outline the thatched rooftops against the stars. The air smells like wood smoke, damp earth, and the sour tang of the midden heap at the village edge. There he goes, your brother whispers, pointing to a hunched figure moving steadily up the path toward the forest. The old man doesn't use a torch, doesn't need one. He's walked this path every morning for 40 years. You break into a jog, feet crunching on the frozen ground. Your empty stomach protests. A day of hungry work ahead. Master Wulfric, you call, voice hushed but urgent. Wait for me. The old man doesn't slow or turn, just keeps his steady pace up the hill. His dark silhouette carries something in each hand. A leather pouch slung over one shoulder, a wooden box tucked under his arm. You catch up, breathing hard, your lungs burning from the cold air. You're late, the old man says simply, no anger in his voice, just fact. Sorry, master, the fire went out and the fire went out, he repeats, cutting you off. And why did that happen? You swallow. Day one as the keeper's apprentice, and you've already failed the most basic test. Because I didn't bank it properly before sleeping. The old man finally stops, turning to look at you. His face is a maze of wrinkles in the dim light, but his eyes are sharp. And what did that cost you this morning? You're about to say something flippant, but stop yourself. The old man isn't asking about convenience. Warmth, time, energy to restart it, wood that we could have saved. He nods, satisfied with your answer. Fire is life, boy. Let it die, and a little of you dies with it. So begins your first lesson from the Keeper of Embers. Wait, you're probably thinking, Keeper of Embers? What kind of job is that? Okay, picture this. In a world without matches, without lighters, without even reliable flint and steel for every household, fire wasn't just important, It was everything. And starting a fire from scratch? That could take hours of work. Hours you didn't have when you were freezing, when food needed cooking, when darkness was falling. So medieval people didn't play around with fire. They developed something far more reliable, a system so effective, so ingenious that modern survivalists haven't even figured it out yet. You follow Master Wulfric as he crests the hill, coming to the small stone hut that serves as the keeper's workshop. It's one of the only stone buildings in the village, aside from the church. That's how important this place is. First task of every morning, he says, pushing open the heavy wooden door. The smell hits you immediately, a complex mix of herbs, smoke, dried clay, and something earthy you can't quite place. We check the bundles. Inside, you can see the faint red glow coming from what looks like dozens of small clay pots arranged on stone shelves, each one about the size of your palm, sealed with wax around wooden plugs. Master Wulfric moves to the nearest shelf and carefully selects one pot. With practiced fingers, he pries out the wooden plug and peers inside. A gentle red glow illuminates his weathered face. Still strong, he murmurs, mostly to himself. He replaces the plug carefully, then marks a small notch in the clay with his thumbnail. You notice now that each pot has a series of notches, some with many, some with few. What are the marks for, you ask? Days, he says simply. This one's been alive for 36 days now. 36 days? You can't hide your disbelief. The fire's been burning in there for over a month? The old man chuckles. Not fire, boy, ember, and this isn't even close to the record. He points to a larger pot in the corner, treated with obvious reverence. That one's been smouldering for nearly 2 months. You stare at the innocuous clay pot. How is that possible? Sit, he says, gesturing to a small wooden stool. I'll show you the secret that keeps our village alive through winter. Master Wulfric moves to his work table, selecting a hollow reed stem about the thickness of your thumb and length of your forearm. The fire bundle, he explains, is the most valuable thing a traveller can carry, more important than gold, more crucial than weapons. He holds up the reed. Elder works best, though reed will do in a pinch. The secret is in the preparation. You watch as he takes a small ember from one of his pots using a metal tool. The ember glows bright orange in the dim room. First, you need perfect embers, not too hot, not too cool. He carefully places the ember inside the hollow reed. Then, you seal both ends. Clay, wax, mud, in an emergency. Leave just enough air holes to keep it alive. He demonstrates, sealing one end with clay, poking a tiny pinhole in it with a needle, then sealing the other end the same way. Too much air, it burns up in hours. Too little, it suffocates and dies. But get it just right. He holds up the finished bundle, and you have fire that travels with you for days, sometimes weeks. That's what's in all these pots, you ask, looking around the room with new understanding. Different types, different materials, different purposes. He points to various shelves. Those are for travellers heading north, those for the shepherds in the hills, those for the charcoal burners. He smiles slightly. Everyone needs fire, but not everyone can keep it alive. That's our job. But why not just use flint and steel, you ask? It seems simpler than this elaborate system. Master Wulfric's expression darkens. Let me tell you about last winter, he says quietly. 3 weeks of rain, everything soaked through. The Oswald family tried for 2 days to strike a spark that would catch. Their youngest, little girl, couldn't have been more than 4, died of cold before they managed it. The room feels suddenly colder as his words sink in. With a fire bundle, he continues, they would have had flame in seconds, no matter the weather, no matter how wet the wood. The ember inside stays protected, stays dry. He places a hand on your shoulder. We don't just keep fire, boy, we keep people alive. Outside, the sun finally breaks over the horizon, casting long shadows through the workshop's small window. The travellers will be coming soon, Master Wulfric says, moving toward a large wooden chest in the corner. They'll need fresh bundles for their journey. He opens the chest, revealing dozens of leather pouches and small wooden containers. Each traveller gets what they need based on their journey. Short trip, small bundle, long journey, multiple bundles to rotate. You move to help him, still marvelling at the system's elegance. No batteries to run out, no fuel to carry, just patient preservation of an existing flame. Some have special designs, the old man explains, showing you a bundle with a clever sliding cover over its air hole. This one lets the carrier control the burn rate. Open it more when you need it hotter, close it to conserve. And these, you ask, pointing to some strange dried mushrooms in a ceramic bowl. Ah, Master Wulfric's face lights up. The real treasure, tinder fungus, found only on certain birch trees. These can smoulder for extraordinary periods. He picks one up reverently. The record in this village is one that kept an ember alive for over 2 months. As the morning progresses, you help Master Wulfric prepare bundles for the day's travellers, each one carefully crafted, each ember selected for its quality, each container designed for its specific purpose. Villagers begin to arrive as the sun climbs higher, a merchant heading to the next town, a shepherd taking his flock to higher pastures, a family travelling to visit relatives. The merchant approaches first, a heavy-set man with a face reddened by wind and sun. "Ah, Wulfric, I'll need 3 for the journey to Eastwick," he says, already reaching for his coin purse. 3? Master Wulfric raises an eyebrow. "It's only 2 days' journey, Edwin." The merchant shifts uncomfortably. The road's been wet, and after what happened to the Miller family, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. 3 it is. Master Wulfric nods, selecting appropriate bundles. 1 for your cart, 1 for your night fire, 1 for emergency. Rotate them, as I showed you. The merchant hands over several coins, more than you'd expect for something as simple as fire. "Your new apprentice?" the merchant asks, nodding toward you. "Started today," Master Wulfric says, "still learning the value of what we do." The merchant fixes you with a serious stare. "Last winter, I was caught in a snowstorm near Westbrook. Horse went lame, night falling, temperature dropping. Without my fire bundle, you'd be looking at a frozen corpse right now instead of my ugly face." He pats the leather pouch Master Wulfric hands him. Worth more than gold, these are. Throughout the morning, more villagers come for their fire bundles. Each has a story. Each treats the humble containers with surprising reverence. In the monastery, Master Wulfric tells you during a quiet moment, they maintain eternal flames. Fire that has burned continuously for generations, never extinguished, passed from one bundle to another in an unbroken chain for hundreds of years. You're struck by the thought, the same flame burning for centuries, ancestral fire linking past to present. Tonight, Master Wulfric says, as the day draws to a close, you'll learn to prepare the perfect ember, not too hot, not too cool, the soul of the bundle. As you help close up the workshop, you realize something has fundamentally shifted in how you see the world. Fire isn't just something that exists when needed and disappears when not. It's a living resource, a companion that must be nurtured, protected, respected. One last thing before you go, Master Wulfric says, reaching into his personal pouch. He pulls out a small wooden container, beautifully carved with symbols you don't recognize. He hands it to you. Inside is a perfectly prepared fire bundle, your first. Never let your home fire go out again, he says quietly. This one will last a week if you're careful. Bring it back when it weakens and I'll show you how to transfer the ember. You clutch the container carefully, feeling its slight warmth against your palm. Inside this humble reed is something precious, not just heat or light, but security, survival, life itself. As you walk back down the hill toward your family's hut, the weight of the container in your hand feels significant. You're carrying more than fire. You're carrying an ancient technology, a forgotten wisdom, unlike the flashlights with batteries that die, the lighters that run out of fuel, the matches that get wet. This simple system creates a closed loop, a perpetual resource that, with care, never needs replacement. The genius isn't that it worked back then. It's that we've forgotten it now, when we might need it most. In your warm, comfortable bed tonight, you don't have to worry about your fire going out. Your heating works automatically. Light comes at the flip of a switch, but somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice might wonder, what would you do if those systems failed? How would you keep warm, keep fed, stay alive? The medieval firekeeper had an answer. Simple, reliable, tested through generations. Sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones. Your family's hut comes into view. Tonight, thanks to your new knowledge, the fire won't go out. Tomorrow, there will be warm embers waiting to greet the dawn. And as the weeks pass, you'll learn there are more forgotten systems, equally ingenious, equally forgotten, that kept medieval people alive through challenges we can barely imagine. The fire bundle was just the beginning. The crowing of the rooster wakes you before dawn, though you hardly slept. Your mind kept circling back to what Master Wulfric had shown you, the elegant simplicity of the fire bundles, the reverence with which villagers treated them. You check your own bundle, the one the old man gave you, still warm to the touch. Following his instructions, you'd kept it in a small clay pot near your sleeping mat, wrapped in wool to insulate it. Your brother watches, curious, as you carefully extract the ember and use it to kindle the morning fire. No flint and steel today? He asks, eyebrow raised. Don't need it, you reply, feeling an unexpected pride as the kindling catches easily from your preserved ember. Within moments, flames dance in the hearth. No struggling with damp wood or failed sparks. Just reliable fire, exactly when needed. The hedge weavers are coming today, your brother says, warming his hands by the newborn flames. Father says we're to help. Your stomach tightens a little. The hedge weavers, everyone knows their importance to the village, but their work is mysterious, secretive. What about my training with Master Wulfric, you ask? He's the one who requested you join them. Said something about you needing to understand all the village systems. After a quick breakfast of hard bread and thin ale, you make your way to the village edge. The morning mist still clings to the fields, but you can see a group of men and women gathering by the northern boundary, carrying an assortment of tools, billhooks, saws, large wooden mallets, coils of flexible willow branches. Master Wulfric is among them, talking with an imposing woman whose silver-streaked hair is braided tightly against her head. Ah, there he is, Wulfric says as you approach. Elric, this is Mistress Edith, master of the hedge weavers. The woman studies you with sharp eyes. No warmth in her face, just assessment. You've never helped with the living wall before? She asks. No, mistress. But you know its importance. You hesitate. Everyone knows the hedge wall surrounds the village, but beyond that, it keeps wild animals out. A ripple of laughter moves through the gathered workers. Mistress Edith doesn't smile. It does a great deal more than that, boy. Come, today you learn what truly protects this village, and it's not the Lord's men or their steel. The group moves toward the northern edge of the village, where the massive hedgerow stands like a green fortress wall. You've seen it your entire life, of course, but never really looked at it. Now, approaching with purpose, you're struck by its size and density, easily 15 feet high in places, so thick you can't see through it. This section needs maintenance, Mistress Edith explains, pointing to an area where the growth seems particularly wild. It was last laid 4 years ago. All laid, you ask? She hands you a pair of thick leather gloves. Watch first, then you'll help. 2 men approach a young tree growing within the hedgerow, a hawthorn with a trunk about as thick as your wrist. Using a billhook, one man makes a deep cut into the trunk, about 2 feet from the ground. Not enough to fell the tree, but enough to weaken it. The cut must be precise, Mistress Edith explains. Too deep, and the tree dies. Too shallow, and it won't bend properly. With the cut made, both men grasp the trunk and slowly, carefully bend it horizontal parallel to the ground. You expect it to snap, but the partial cut allows it to bend without breaking completely. This is hedge laying, she continues. We partially cut the living trees and bend them horizontally. As they heal, they'll grow both upward and outward, creating a living wall that can't be easily cut or burned. You watch in fascination as the men secure the bent tree using wooden stakes. The hawthorn now forms a living barrier about waist high. Your turn, Mistress Edith says, pointing to another young tree. Under her watchful eye, you make your cut, too shallow at first, and she has you deepen it slightly. The sensation of bending the living tree is strange. There's resistance, a tension that feels like the tree is fighting back until suddenly it gives way and lays horizontal. Good, she nods. Now you understand the basic technique, but this is just the beginning of what the living wall does for us. Throughout the morning, you work alongside the hedge weavers. It's harder labour than you expected, and your hands blister despite the gloves. But slowly, you begin to see the genius of the system. Notice what we plant where, Mistress Edith says during a brief rest. She points to different sections of the hedge. Hawthorn and blackthorn provide the structure, with their thorns creating an impenetrable barrier. She's right, the thorns on these trees are vicious, some nearly 2 inches long and sharp as needles. But look closer. What else do you see woven among them? You peer into the dense growth and begin to notice what you'd overlooked before. Apple and pear trees, carefully grafted and woven into the structure. Wild plums, hazelnuts, berries of all kinds. The hedge feeds us, you realise aloud. Mistress Edith nods. A well-maintained hedge provides fruit from spring through autumn. During the famine 3 years ago, these berries kept children from starving. One of the older workers, a man with a heavily lined face, chimes in. My grandfather said in the great hunger of his youth, half the village survived on hedge fruit when the crops failed. And look here, Mistress Edith guides you to another section. Elder, willow, yarrow, comfrey, all with medicinal properties. So it's a living pharmacy too, you say, beginning to understand. Indeed. The same barrier that keeps wolves and raiders out also provides medicine, food, and materials. As the day progresses, you learn how different sections of the hedge serve different purposes. Near the livestock pens, the hedge is particularly dense to prevent predators from reaching the animals. Near the village's main path, there's a carefully disguised opening, a hedge port, they call it, that can be quickly sealed in times of danger. Only villagers know about this entrance, Mistress Edith explains. If raiders come, they'll waste time searching for a way through while we seal this passage. You help as they demonstrate how bundles of blackthorn can be quickly positioned to close the gap, creating a barrier so thorny that no one would dare push through it. The lords in their stone keeps think walls must be dead to be strong, one of the older women says with a snort. Dead stone, dead wood. Our wall grows stronger every year instead of weaker. Some of these hedgerows are older than the villages they protect, another adds. There's a section on the east side that stood for over 200 years, outlived the original village entirely. During the midday meal, bread, cheese and apples harvested directly from the hedge, Mistress Edith explains the yearly cycle of hedge maintenance. We always work in winter, when the sap is down, she says. Cut and weave at the wrong time and you'll kill the living wall. Each section gets maintained every 4 to 6 years, depending on growth. How long does it take to establish a new section, you ask? 7 years before it's truly formidable, but even a 3-year hedge will discourage casual trespassers. After eating, the work continues. You notice how birds flit in and out of the hedge continuously. Finches, thrushes, small wrens and larger fieldfares. The birds are as important as the thorns, Mistress Edith tells you, following your gaze. They nest in the safety of the hedge, then feed on insects that would otherwise destroy our crops. You've never thought about it before, but it makes sense. The fields closest to the hedge always seem to have fewer pest problems. And look there, she points to a narrow trail along the hedge bottom. Fox runs. The hedge provides corridors for wildlife to move between woodlands. But wouldn't we want to keep foxes away from the village? She smiles for the first time. You'd think so, but foxes hunt the rats and mice that would otherwise overrun our grain stores. Everything has its place, its purpose. As the afternoon wears on, you help collect the cuttings from the hedge maintenance. Nothing goes to waste. Straight branches are set aside for tool handles. Flexible willow and bramble are coiled for basket weaving. Even the smallest twigs are gathered for kindling. In spring, Mistress Edith explains, we'll harvest specific plants for dyes, walnuts for brown, elderberries for purple, woad for blue. The more you learn, the more you realise that the simple hedge is actually an intricate multi-purpose system. Defence, food, medicine, tools, pest control, wildlife corridors, all from a living structure that strengthens rather than degrades over time. As the sun begins to set, Mistress Edith leads you to a section of hedge you haven't worked on yet. This is the oldest part of our wall, she says, with reverence in her voice, planted by my great-grandmother's grandmother, nearly 8 generations of protection. The hedge here towers nearly 20 feet high, with a trunk system so dense it resembles a solid wall of wood. The thorny exterior looks truly impenetrable. During the Great Raids 50 years ago, 3 villages in this valley were burned. Ours alone was spared. Raiders tried for 2 days to breach this wall, but couldn't get through. Eventually, they left to find easier targets. You place your hand on the ancient hedge, feeling the rough bark, the solidity of generations of growth. It's like a castle wall, but alive. Better than a castle wall, she corrects. This repairs itself, grows stronger with time, not weaker, and no lord can tax us for its maintenance. That's when you notice something unusual. Symbols carved into some of the older trees within the hedge, intricate patterns that clearly have meaning. What are these marks, you ask? Mistress Edith exchanges glances with the other hedge weavers. After a moment, she seems to make a decision. The hedge doesn't just protect our bodies, Elric. It protects our knowledge. She runs her fingers over one of the symbols. Each major plant in the hedge has a purpose. Some have many. These marks remind us of their properties, when to harvest them, how to prepare them. A living library, you murmur. Exactly. If soldiers come and burn our homes, if priests confiscate our books, if lords forbid our practices, the hedge remembers. The knowledge stays safe, hidden in plain sight. As twilight deepens, Master Wulfric rejoins your group, having spent the day working on another section of hedge. "Did you learn something today, apprentice?" he asks. "More than I expected," you admit. "I've lived with this hedge my entire life and never understood what it truly was." He nods, satisfied. The best protections are often the ones no one recognizes as protections. Remember that. Before you leave, Mistress Edith hands you a small bundle of hedge cuttings. "Plant these along the north side of your family's hut," she instructs. "In 3 years, you'll have a small food hedge of your own. In 7, it will protect your home as effectively as any guard." You take the bundle carefully. Seeds and cuttings of hawthorn, blackthorn elder, hazel, and crab apple. The beginnings of your own living wall. "Thank you," you say, understanding this is more valuable than it appears. "One more thing before you go," she says, her voice lowering. "The great storm last autumn damaged the eastern section badly. We'll need to replant. Meet us there tomorrow at dawn. Bring a spade if you have one." You nod, honoured to be included in such important work. Walking home in the gathering darkness, your mind whirls with all you've learned. 2 days of apprenticeship have already revealed 2 interconnected survival systems your village relies on: fire preservation and living fortifications, and yet neither would impress a modern observer. No complex machinery, no rare materials, just generations of accumulated wisdom working with nature instead of against it. Your brother is waiting when you return home, curious about your day with the hedge weavers. "Did they show you the hawk's nest?" he asks as you warm yourself by the fire, still burning strong thanks to your morning ember. "Hawk's nest? No. Why?" He grins. "There's a pair of hawks that nest in the tallest part of the southern hedge each year. The weavers protect them because they keep the pigeon population in check. The pigeons would destroy our seeds otherwise." Another layer of protection you hadn't even seen. You wonder how many more there are, how many systems working in harmony that you've never noticed. You place your bundle of hedge cuttings carefully beside your sleeping mat, next to the clay pot holding your fire bundle. 2 forms of protection, 2 technologies more sophisticated than they appear. "Get some sleep," your brother advises. Dawn comes early for hedge weavers. As you drift towards sleep, you can't help but wonder what other forgotten knowledge awaits you tomorrow. The living fence wasn't primitive. It was the ultimate expression of working with nature instead of against it. Modern fences rust, decay, require constant maintenance and eventually fail completely. But somewhere in England there are hedgerows still standing that were first laid by medieval hands. Living walls that have outlasted empires. That's not primitive technology, that's genius. Dawn brings a thin, cold drizzle, the kind that soaks through clothes faster than a downpour. You join the hedge weavers at the eastern boundary as promised, hood pulled against the weather, spade in hand. The damaged section is worse than you expected. A massive oak had fallen during the autumn storm, crushing nearly 30 feet of ancient hedgerow. "We'll need to start fresh here," Mistress Edith says, surveying the damage with a frown. "Full replanting." The work is grueling, clearing the fallen tree, digging new trenches for saplings, planting in precise patterns that look chaotic to your untrained eye, but follow Mistress Edith's exacting specifications. "Blackthorn on the outside," she instructs. "Hawthorn behind. Crabapple at 10-foot intervals. Elder at the corners." By midday, your hands are blistered despite the gloves, your back aching from digging in the cold, wet soil. But there's satisfaction in the work, knowing you're rebuilding a protection that might stand for centuries. "Elric," a voice calls from the village path. You look up to see your cousin Leif jogging toward you, out of breath. "Your father sent me," he pants. "There's smoke rising from the Aylwoods barn, all able hands needed." Your heart sinks. Fire in the village is everyone's nightmare. Thatch burns like tinder, and a stray spark can destroy years of work in minutes. "Go," Mistress Edith says immediately. "We'll continue here." You drop your tools and run with Leif back toward the village centre, expecting to see flames, hear shouts of panic. Instead, you find a small crowd gathered calmly around the Aylwoods barn. Thick smoke rises from the roof vents, but there's no urgency in people's movements. Your father spots you and waves you over. "Not a fire," he explains, seeing your confused expression. "It's smoking day. The Aylwoods are doing their winter preservation. They requested help." Relief washes over you, followed by curiosity. You've eaten smoked meat your entire life, but never participated in its making. "Go in and see if they need an extra pair of hands," your father suggests. Good knowledge to have. You approach the heavy wooden door of the barn. When you pull it open, a wall of fragrant smoke billows out, making your eyes water. Through the haze, you see Goodwife Aylwood, a stout woman known for her practical knowledge, directing several people hanging items from the barn's upper beams. "Ah, another helper," she says, noticing you. "Good. We need strong arms. Come in. Come in." Stepping into the smoke-filled barn is like entering another world. The light filters through the haze in strange patterns, creating an otherworldly glow. Your eyes sting at first, but you quickly adjust. What surprises you most is what's being smoked. You expected to see meat, hams, bacon, perhaps some fish. And yes, those are here, hanging from the highest beams. But there's so much more. "Take these up to the middle racks," Goodwife Aylwood instructs, handing you several large cloth sacks. Not too high, mind you, that's for the meat only. The sacks are heavy, filled with what feels like grain. You raise your eyebrows in question. "Barley," she confirms. "And those over there are rye and wheat. The smoke keeps the weevils and moths away." You climb the wooden ladder to the middle level of the barn, where several horizontal poles create a series of racks. Following the instructions of another worker, you hang the sacks so they're fully exposed to the smoke but not directly over the fire pits below. "Why different heights?" you ask the worker, a middle-aged man with a smoke-darkened face. "Heat and smoke density," he explains. "Meat needs the hottest smoke to kill rot. Grains need medium heat to drive off pests. Delicate things like herbs and medicines need the gentlest smoke." Looking up, you see the system now, a careful arrangement by height. Meat and fish at the top, where smoke is hottest. Grain sacks in the middle, and at your eye level, bundles of herbs, flowers, and what appear to be medicinal plants spread on wide, flat racks. "Is this all from one family?" you ask, surprised by the quantity. The man laughs. No, the whole village uses the Aylwood smoke barn. They have the best setup, and Goodwife Aylwood knows the smoke better than anyone. Each family brings their goods on their assigned day. Back on the ground floor, you report to Goodwife Aylwood for more instructions. "What's burning?" you ask, noticing multiple fire pits with different coloured smoke rising from each. She gives you an appraising look. "You've an interest in the smoke craft." "I'm learning the village systems," you explain. "Master Wulfric's apprentice." Her expression changes to one of respect. "Ah, the new keeper in training. Well then, you should understand what we're doing here." She gestures to the different fire pits. Each wood creates different smoke with different properties. She points to the pit with the whitest smoke. Apple wood there, sweet smoke, good for pork and fowl, gives a golden colour. She moves to the next. Oak, strong smoke, best for beef and heartier foods, preserves longest. And finally to a pit with bluish smoke. Juniper and pine creates a barrier that insects won't cross. We use it mainly for grains and textiles. I didn't know different woods made different smoke, you admit. Or most don't, she says, with a hint of pride. They throw any wood on the fire and hope for the best, but there's knowledge in smoke, old knowledge. For the next hour, you help carry items to their proper locations in the smoke hierarchy. It's exhausting work in the thick air, but fascinating. You see things you never expected to be smoked. Bundles of linen cloth, coils of rope, leather hides, even wooden tools. The rope and nets need smoke treatment before the fishing season, Goodwife Aylward explains when she catches you looking curiously at a pile of fishing nets, makes them last twice as long in water. And the cloth, you ask, nodding toward bundles of linen. Smoke makes it resist water and moths. Not as well as proper oiling, but it helps, especially for work clothes. You're helping hang a rack of leather hides when a fit of coughing overcomes you. The smoke has finally penetrated your lungs enough to irritate them. Go outside and catch your breath, Goodwife Aylward instructs. First-timers always need breaks. Grateful, you step outside into the cool air. Your clothes reek of smoke, and you can taste it on your tongue, but the fresh air is a relief. Several others are also taking breaks, sitting on logs near the barn entrance. An older man with a beard streaked with grey makes room for you. First smoke day, he asks. You nod, still catching your breath. I remember my first, he says with a chuckle. Thought my lungs would never recover. You'll get used to it. So much more than just meat, you observe. That's what the Southerners don't understand, the man says. They smoke only for flavour. We smoke for survival. He gestures toward the barn. A properly smoked grain sack will stay free of pests for years, not months. Smoked herbs keep their potency through the harshest winters. Some medicines actually become stronger after smoke exposure. How so, you ask, intrigued. Take willow bark, he says. Good for pain and fever, as you likely know, but smoke it with alderwood and its potency doubles. The old herbalist, before Mistress Agnes, discovered that by accident during a smoke day like this. Your break ends too quickly, and you return to the smoke-filled barn. This time, Goodwife Aylward leads you to a small side room off the main smoking area. Here, the air is clearer, though still pungent with smoke. An elderly woman sits at a table covered with small bundles of herbs and plants. This is Mistress Agnes, our herbalist, Goodwife Aylward introduces. She requested help with her medicines. The old woman barely glances up from her work, carefully wrapping herbs in linen before tying them with string. You're Wulfric's new boy, she says. Not a question. Yes, mistress. Good. Sit. I'll show you something few understand. You obey, taking a seat across from her at the small table. Her fingers move with surprising dexterity for her age, sorting and bundling various dried plants you can't identify. Different herbs need different smoke, she explains without preamble. Some need the pine smoke to enhance their properties. Others need applewood to maintain their gentleness. Others still need oak for longevity. She holds up a bundle of dark leaves. This is fever moss, useful for reducing heat in the body, but fresh, it's too strong, can cause visions, confusion. She sets the bundle in a small basket separate from the others. This will go to the gentlest smoke, just enough to mellow its effects without reducing its healing power. For the next hour, you help Mistress Agnes prepare her medicinal herbs for smoking. Each has its specific needs, its particular placement within the smoke hierarchy, its precise, almost ritualistic work. The monks claim all healing comes from prayer, she says after a long silence, but they still send for my smoked herbs when sickness comes to their doors. There's a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Have you always been the village herbalist? You ask. 30 years now. She nods. Learned from my grandmother, who learned from hers. The smoke knowledge goes back further than anyone remembers. Before the stone church, before the Lord's manor. She hands you a small cloth pouch filled with a pungent mixture. Smoke preservation isn't just for winter stores, boy. It's for knowledge itself. When the Big Abbey tried to burn our healing books during the last king's reign, we still had our smoked herbs. Our knowledge kept alive in practice, not just words. You're struck by the similarity to what Mistress Edith had said about the hedge, another form of preservation that protected knowledge as much as physical resources. By late afternoon, the smoking is at its peak. The barn glows with an almost magical light as sunbeams pierce the thick haze. The 3 fire pits are carefully tended, different woods added in precise amounts to maintain the correct smoke quality. Goodwife Aylward leads you to a corner where several clay containers sit sealed with wax. The most valuable part, she says, tapping one of the containers. Smoke ash. We collect it from each type of wood separately. The ash from apple wood makes the best soap for delicate things. Oak ash makes lye for the strongest soap. Pine ash mixed with fat creates a salve for winter rashes and chilblains. You marvel at the completeness of the system. Nothing wasted, everything transformed. How long will all this stay in the smoke? You ask, gesturing to the hanging food and materials. Depends on what it is, she explains. Herbs might need only a day or 2, grains a week. Meats can hang for nearly a month, depending on size and how long we need them to last. She points to an especially large ham hanging from the highest beam. That one's for midwinter feast. It'll smoke for 3 weeks, then keep until winter's heart without spoiling. Your father finds you as the day's light begins to fade. Your eyes are red, your throat raw from the smoke, but your mind is alive with new understanding. Learned something? He asks as you walk home together. More than I expected, you admit. I thought smoking was just for flavour. He laughs. That's what the rich lords think too. They smoke meat to make it taste better. We smoke to survive winter. At home, your mother has a bath waiting, a rare luxury but necessary to remove the smoke smell saturating your clothes and hair. As you scrub, you reflect on the day's lessons. Modern people with refrigerators and chemicals might look at a smokehouse as primitive, but the smoke preservation system you witnessed was anything but simple. It was chemistry and timing, knowledge refined through generations of trial and error. It was alchemy, turning the perishable into the permanent using nothing but carefully controlled smoke. After bathing, you join your family for the evening meal. Your mother has prepared a stew featuring smoked venison from last season, still perfectly preserved despite being nearly 5 months old. The Aylwards finished their big smoking today, you tell her between bites. Goodwife Aylward showed me the different woods they use. Did she show you the smoke barrels for the beekeepers? Your mother asks. You shake your head, realizing there was yet another aspect you hadn't even seen. They create special smoke from certain herbs, she explains. The beekeepers use it to calm the bees during honey collection. But it has to be exactly the right mixture, or it harms the hive. Another layer of knowledge, another refined technique hidden within what appeared simple from the outside. That night, as you lay in bed, you notice something. Your smoky clothes hanging by the door to air out have attracted no moths. The smell that clings to them despite your bath is keeping insects at bay, exactly as Goodwife Aylward had explained. Protection and preservation, the common themes emerging from everything you're learning. Your fire bundle sits nearby, still safely preserving its ember. Tomorrow you'll need to return it to Master Wulfric to refresh it, just as he instructed. You wonder what new knowledge the old man will share next. 3 days into your apprenticeship, and already the world looks different. Systems and knowledge hidden in plain sight. Survival techniques refined over centuries. Not primitive technology, just different technology. Perfect for its time, and perhaps, you think as you drift towards sleep, still perfect for times when modern methods fail. Morning comes with frozen dew and clear skies, a rare cloudless day that promises little warmth despite the sunshine. You return your fire bundle to Master Wulfric, as instructed, finding him already at work in his stone hut atop the hill. How was your time with the hedge weavers and the smoking barn? He asks, carefully examining your bundle. Eye-opening, you admit. I never realized how complex those systems were. He nods, satisfied with both your answer and the condition of your fire bundle. Most don't. The best survival methods don't announce themselves as such. He sets your bundle aside and selects a fresh reed. I'll prepare you a new one. Today, you're to help Mistress Hildegard with her clay work. The potter, you ask, surprised. You know of her, of course. Every village needs someone skilled with clay, but you hadn't expected her work to be part of your apprenticeship. She's more than just a potter, Master Wulfric corrects, already preparing a fresh ember for your bundle. She creates what some might call batteries. Batteries? The word is unfamiliar. Vessels that store things, he explains, not just water or grain, but cold, heat, even preservation itself. Go to her workshop by the creek. Tell her I sent you to learn about the cooling emporas. Armed with a fresh fire bundle and curiosity, you make your way down the hill toward the far side of the village where Mistress Hildegard keeps her workshop. The building is distinctive, larger than most village huts, with a tall kiln chimney rising from its rear. Clay pots, jars, and vessels of all sizes surround it in various stages of completion. You find the mistress herself working a large mass of grey clay with strong, weathered hands. She's older than you expected, with grey streaked hair tied back in a practical knot, but her movements show no sign of age's weakness. Master Wulfric sent me, you explain after introducing yourself, to learn about cooling emporas. She studies you for a moment, then nods decisively. About time he sent someone. Knowledge doesn't preserve itself. She gestures to a wooden stool. Sit, watch first, then help. For the next hour, you observe as she works the clay with practiced precision. Unlike regular pots with single walls, she crafts vessels with double walls, an inner and outer chamber separated by a small gap. The cooling empora, she explains while working, is older than the village, older than the church. My grandmother's grandmother made them the same way. Her hands never stop moving as she speaks, expertly forming the complex vessel. The principle is simple, she continues, but the execution must be precise. She points to the gap between the vessel walls. This space will be filled with wet sand. As water evaporates through the porous outer clay, it pulls heat from the inner chamber. Creating cooling without ice, you realize aloud. Exactly. She looks pleased at your quick understanding. In high summer, when the well water turns tepid by midday, these keep drinking water cool and sweet. Milk stays fresh an extra day. Meat doesn't spoil as quickly. She finishes shaping the vessel and sets it carefully on a shelf to dry slightly before firing. Then she selects another partially completed vessel, this one with a different design. This, she says, is for the opposite purpose, a heat battery. The vessel is smaller and denser, with thicker walls and a narrow opening at the top. The clay here is special, she explains, tapping the half-formed vessel, mixed with crushed stone and iron filings from the blacksmith's forge. It absorbs heat during firing, then releases it slowly over many hours. Like a stone that stays warm after sitting near the fire, you suggest. Similar, but much more effective. These can be heated in the morning fire, wrapped in wool, and carried to keep hands warm all day. Shepherds take them on winter watches. Travellers tuck them into bedrolls on cold nights. You think about the practical genius of such a simple object. No need for constant fire, no danger of sparks or flame, just steady, reliable warmth when and where it's needed most. But the most sophisticated, Mistress Hildegard continues, are the preservation chambers. She points to a row of sealed clay vessels on a high shelf. Each is marked with symbols you don't recognize. These create microclimates for storing seeds, certain medicines, even the starter for bread. She selects one and hands it to you. It's heavier than it looks, sealed with wax around its lid. This one preserves parsnip seeds, she explains. Normally they lose their vigour after a year, but properly sealed in a chamber like this, with the right mixture of ash and dried herbs inside, they'll remain viable for 5 years or more. You turn the vessel in your hands, noting the careful craftsmanship. How is this different from just a sealed jar? Everything is in the details, she says, taking it back from you. The porosity of the clay, it must breathe just enough, but not too much. The mixture inside creates the perfect environment for those specific seeds. Too dry, they die. Too damp, they rot or sprout prematurely. She replaces the vessel on its shelf and gestures for you to follow her outside. Behind her workshop stands a structure you hadn't noticed before, a small, partially underground room built into the hillside. The thick door bears the same symbols you saw on the preservation vessels. The seed bank, she explains, unlocking the heavy door with a key she wears around her neck. Every village should have one, though few do anymore. Inside, the temperature drops noticeably. The walls are lined with shelves holding hundreds of clay vessels, each carefully labelled. The air smells of earth and herbs and something undefinable, the scent of dormant life, perhaps. Seeds from every crop we grow, Mistress Hildegard says, with quiet pride, some dating back 20 years or more. If disease takes our wheat, if floods wash away our planting, if war comes and fields burn, we have what we need to start again. You stare in amazement at the clay library of life surrounding you, and they all stay viable in these vessels? If properly prepared, yes. Each type of seed needs its specific clay mixture, its specific internal environment. She points to different shelves. Those are grains, those root vegetables, those herbs and flowers, each with their own vessel design refined over generations. The technological sophistication hidden in these humble clay pots strikes you deeply. This isn't primitive storage, it's precision environmental control using nothing but natural materials. Back in the workshop, Mistress Hildegard puts you to work, first helping to prepare clay, mixing it with different materials for different purposes, then assisting as she throws pots on her wheel. It's harder than it looks. Your first attempts at forming vessels are laughable compared to her precise creations. Don't worry, she chuckles, seeing your frustration. It takes years to master. Today is just for understanding. Midday brings a short break. You share a simple meal of bread and cheese, eating outside in the winter sunshine. Despite the clear sky, the air remains bitterly cold. perfect weather for demonstrating the cooling empora's cousin, Mistress Hildegard says, disappearing briefly into her workshop. She returns with what looks like an ordinary clay pitcher, but with subtle differences you now recognize: double walls, slightly porous outer surface. The warming pitcher, she explains, pouring water from a kettle into the vessel, keeps drinks hot for hours without a fire nearby. She seals it with a cork stopper and hands it to you. Hold it. The pitcher is warm to the touch, but not hot despite the steaming water inside. The outer layer stays comfortable to hold, she explains, but the inner chamber maintains heat far longer than a normal vessel. By tonight, that water will still be warm enough for washing. How many different vessels do you make? You ask, marvelling at the ingenuity. Dozens of designs, each with a specific purpose. She gestures around the yard at the various pots and jars in different stages of completion: cold storage, heat retention, seed preservation, fermentation control, even moisture regulation for certain crafts. After the meal, she shows you how to prepare the special sand mixture for cooling emporas. It's not just any sand, but a specific blend from the riverbed, washed and sorted to the right consistency, then mixed with certain minerals. Too fine, it blocks the pores and no evaporation occurs, she explains as you sift the sand through a cloth. Too coarse, the water passes through too quickly and the cooling effect is weak. You help her fill the gap in a completed cooling empora with the prepared sand, then add water until it's properly saturated. Now we test it, she says. Inside her workshop, she fills 2 identical cups, one with water from her regular pitcher, one with water from a cooling empora that's been working all morning. She hands both to you. Taste the difference. The first cup is room temperature, slightly stale tasting. The second is remarkably cool and fresh, almost as if just drawn from the deepest part of the well. That's incredible, you say honestly. And this works even in summer, especially in summer. The hotter the day, the stronger the evaporation, the better the cooling effect. She takes the cups back. The beauty is in its self-regulation. No need to adjust it or monitor it. The system responds naturally to the environment. Throughout the afternoon, you learn about more specialized clay vessels, fermentation crocks designed to maintain perfect conditions for transforming cabbage into sauerkraut, wine vessels that keep temperature stable during the crucial early stages, special containers for storing herbs that would otherwise lose their potency. The most complex are these, Mistress Hildegard says, showing you a set of interlocking vessels, the nested preservation system used for our most valuable medicines. The design is ingenious, a small central container for the medicine itself, surrounded by a chamber filled with specific herbs and minerals, all encased in a water-resistant outer vessel. Each layer creates the precise conditions needed, she explains. The monastery pays handsomely for these to store their most precious remedies. As the light begins to fade, Mistress Hildegard shows you to a corner of her workshop where a large clay disc, nearly the size of a millstone, sits near the kiln. The night warmer, she says, instructing you to help her move it closer to the kiln's outer wall. We'll heat it now, while the kiln still burns hot from today's firing. Tonight, it will radiate warmth for hours after the fire dies. Together, you position the massive clay disc where it can absorb heat from the kiln. You notice it's a special formulation, darker and denser than her other clay works. Special clay mixed with iron stone, she explains, seeing your curiosity. It holds heat longer than any other material I've found. The sun has nearly set by the time you finish helping around the workshop. Mistress Hildegard hands you a small clay vessel, similar to the heat batteries she showed you earlier, but sized to fit in a pocket. For your walk home, she says, I heated it in the kiln. It should stay warm for at least 2 hours. You thank her and tuck the warm vessel into your pocket. The heat radiates through your clothing, a surprising comfort against the biting evening cold. "Come back in 3 days," she instructs. "We'll be firing the cooling emporas, and I could use an extra pair of hands." Walking home in the gathering darkness, you marvel at how something as simple as clay could be transformed into such sophisticated technology. Your pocket warmer still radiates heat against your side, a constant comfort in the freezing evening. At home, you find your family huddled near the hearth. Winter nights are always difficult. The fire can't warm the entire hut, and sleeping areas further from the hearth can be bitterly cold. "What's that?" your brother asks as you pull the pocket warmer from your clothing. "Heat battery," you explain, handing it to him. His eyes widen at the warmth radiating from the small clay vessel. "From the potter?" he asks. "Mistress Hildegard," you correct, "and she's far more than just a potter." Your father examines the heat battery with interest. "I've seen travellers with these, but never knew how they were made. They're just one type," you explain, finding yourself eager to share what you've learned. "She makes cooling vessels too, double-walled with wet sand between, and preservation chambers for seeds and medicines." As you describe the various clay technologies, you realize how many of them you've seen around the village without recognizing their significance. The water pitcher that keeps the miller's drinking water cool even on harvest days, the vessels the herbalist uses for her most valuable medicines, the warming stones the baker tucks into bread deliveries on cold mornings. Hidden technology hiding in plain sight. That night, you place your pocket warmer at the foot of your sleeping mat before getting under the blankets. The gentle heat warms your perpetually cold feet, a small luxury you've never experienced before. Such a simple thing, yet so effective. As you drift towards sleep, your mind returns to Mistress Hildegard's seed bank, those humble clay vessels preserving life through winter, through drought, through disaster, ensuring survival not just for one season but for generations to come. Modern storage depends on plastic, on refrigeration, on technology that inevitably fails. But these clay technologies, they could work forever, created from the earth itself, not primitive at all, just perfectly adapted for their purpose. Morning arrives with the soft patter of rain against the thatch. The gentle sound would normally lull you back to sleep, but today there's urgency in the household. Your father's boots have sprung a leak, a disaster in winter when dry feet can mean the difference between health and sickness. "They're my only good pair," he mutters, examining the cracked leather with a frown. Water from yesterday's work in the fields has seeped through, leaving the leather stiff and damaged. "Can't afford new ones before spring." Your mother glances at you over her breakfast porridge. "Didn't you say Master Wulfric was teaching you the village systems? Perhaps he knows someone who could help." You think about the knowledge you've gained over the past few days. Firekeeping, hedge weaving, smoke preservation, clay crafting, but nothing specifically about leather repair. Still, Master Wulfric would know who to ask. The morning rain has settled into a steady drizzle by the time you reach Master Wulfric's hut on the hill. You find him sorting through a collection of dried plants, carefully separating leaves from stems. "Father's boots are leaking," you explain after greeting him. "We can't afford new ones. Is there someone in the village who could help?" Master Wulfric sets aside his work and considers for a moment. Interesting timing. Goodwife Marta begins her waterproofing work today. The hunting party returns tomorrow and their gear will need treatment. He nods decisively. "Go to the tanner's yard. Tell Marta I sent you to learn about friction glaze." The tanner's yard sits downwind of the village for good reason. The process of turning animal hides into usable leather produces smells that turn stomachs. But today, as you approach, the usual stench is masked by a different scent, sharp, resinous, almost pleasant. You find Goodwife Marta working in an open-sided shed adjacent to the main tanning area. She's a sturdy woman with muscular arms and hands stained dark from years of working with tanning agents. 3 large pots bubble over small fires, each emitting a different coloured steam and distinct smell. Several village children help with simple tasks, stirring pots, sorting materials, carrying water. Unlike the main tanning work, this seems to be a process villagers are eager to assist with. Master Wulfric sent me, you explain, approaching Goodwife Marta, to learn about friction glaze. My father's boots are leaking. She looks you up and down, then nods. Wulfric's new apprentice heard about you. She wipes her hands on her apron. Boots are easy enough. We'll do them last after you've learned the process. She gestures to the bubbling pots. Friction glaze is all about the right ingredients and proper application. Nothing else works as well for keeping water out while letting sweat escape. She taps the largest pot. This is the base, pine resin collected last spring when the sap runs strongest. Rendered animal fat from last month's slaughtering, beeswax from the summer hives. The mixture in the pot has a golden amber colour and gives off a rich woody scent. Different items need different mixtures, she continues, moving to the second pot. This one's for fishing nets and ropes, more resin, less wax, with crushed charcoal added to fight rot in water. The second mixture is darker, almost black. The third pot contains a paler, more translucent substance, and this is for finer leathers and cloth, lighter, with more beeswax for flexibility. A village man approaches with a heavy woolen cloak draped over his arm. For the hunting trip tomorrow, he explains, handing it to Goodwife Marta. Needs fresh treatment. Perfect timing, she tells you. You can learn on Oswald's cloak. She turns to the man. Come back before sundown. It should be ready by then. After he leaves, Goodwife Marta spreads the cloak on a large wooden table. Though clean, the wool shows signs of wear, with thin spots at the shoulders and elbows. First, we check for repairs needed, she explains, carefully examining the garment. Finding a small tear near the hem, she quickly stitches it with waxed thread. Always repair before waterproofing, otherwise the water finds the weakness. With the cloak prepared, she moves to the first pot and uses a wooden paddle to scoop some of the amber mixture into a shallow bowl. It has cooled enough to form a thick paste. "For now," she says, scooping a generous dollop onto her palm. The secret isn't just the mixture, it's the application. She hands you a smaller amount. Rub it between your palms until you feel the heat build. You follow her instructions, working the waxy substance between your hands. Initially stiff and resistant, it gradually softens as the friction warms it. "Feel that?" she asks. The heat is essential. It opens the fibres, allows the mixture to penetrate rather than just coat the surface. Once the paste has warmed sufficiently, she begins applying it to the cloak with vigorous circular motions. The pressure of her hands is substantial. This isn't gentle treatment, but forceful working of the material. Many people make the mistake of just smearing it on top, she explains, her strong arms never ceasing their motion. That creates a coating that cracks and peels, useless after a few rains. The mixture must become part of the material itself. She guides you to help, showing you how to apply proper pressure, how to work systematically across the fabric. It's hard labour. Within minutes your arms ache and sweat beads on your forehead despite the cool day. This is why it's called friction glaze, she says, noting your exertion. The friction does as much work as the mixture itself. For nearly an hour, you both work the water-resistant paste into every inch of the woolen cloak. Your hands develop a peculiar sensitivity. You can feel where the mixture has properly penetrated and where it hasn't. Good, Goodwife Marta nods, seeing you adjust your pressure over a particularly dense section of weave. You're learning to feel the difference. When the cloak is fully treated, she hangs it near one of the fires. Now it needs to set, not too close to the flame, just enough warmth to help it cure properly. How long will the waterproofing last, you ask, flexing your tired fingers. If done properly, a full season of hard use, more with occasional reapplication to worn spots. She examines your hands. You've got good strength for the work, important for proper penetration. Throughout the day, villagers bring various items needing waterproofing: leather bags, work gloves, wool socks, even wooden tool handles that would otherwise swell and crack from moisture. Each receives specific treatment, different mixtures, different application techniques. A fishing net is dipped in the dark mixture, then worked between strong hands until every fibre is impregnated. Leatherwork gloves receive the lighter paste, applied with special attention to the seams where water might penetrate. The hunters and shepherds rely on this protection, Goodwife Marta explains as you help treat a shepherd's heavy cloak. They spend weeks exposed to rain and snow. Without proper waterproofing, they'd suffer terribly. Wet clothes in winter can kill faster than lack of food. You think about how different this is from modern rain gear. No plastic, no synthetic coatings, yet clearly effective based on the villagers' confidence in the treatment. What makes it better than just oiling leather, you ask as you work on a pair of gloves. Oil wears off quickly, becomes rancid, attracts insects and mold. She shakes her head dismissively. And it doesn't work at all for wool or linen. The friction glaze forms a bond with the material, becomes part of it rather than just sitting on top. She points to a cloak hanging to cure. And unlike oil, it lets the body's moisture escape. You won't get soaked from your own sweat trapped inside. By midday, your arms feel like lead from the constant friction work, but you've developed a rhythm to the process. Each new item presents its own challenges. Dense wool requires more pressure, thin linen needs gentler but more persistent treatment, leather needs special attention at stress points. A young woman arrives with a small wooden cradle. "For my sister's new baby," she explains. "The roof leaks near where she sleeps." Goodwife Marta selects yet another mixture, this one with a different scent, sweeter and lighter. For the baby things, she explains to you. No pine resin, which can irritate delicate skin. We use birch instead, with extra beeswax. The application process is the same. Persistent friction until the mixture penetrates the wood. This will protect the cradle from drips without bringing harsh smells to the baby's bed, Goodwife Marta explains. As the afternoon progresses, you notice how Goodwife Marta adjusts her mixtures for different purposes. Some items receive additional ingredients: crushed charcoal for items exposed to strong sunlight, certain herbs mixed in to repel insects, fine mineral powder for flexibility in extreme cold. "The forest provides everything we need," she tells you while preparing a fresh batch. Pine for general waterproofing, spruce for items that need flexibility in cold, birch for items touching skin. She points to various containers of collected resins. Each has its properties, its purpose. You help collect fresh rainwater in buckets placed outside the shed's overhang. This water, she explains, is used to test the waterproofing. The best way to know if the treatment worked, she says, taking the now cured shepherd's cloak down from its hanging place. She pours water over the wool. Instead of soaking in, the droplets bead beautifully on the surface, rolling off without leaving a trace of dampness behind. "Perfect," she nods with satisfaction. "That will keep Cedric dry even in the worst mountain storms." Late in the day, a grizzled old hunter arrives with an assortment of leather goods, a quiver, knife sheaths, and a weather-beaten hunting bag. The eastern forests are flooded this season, he explains. We'll be wading through swamp for days. Need the best you've got, Marta. She selects ingredients with particular care for his equipment, creating a mixture you haven't seen used yet, darker, with a greenish tint. Special blend, she tells you quietly as the hunter steps outside for a moment, with added moss extract for disguising human scent, makes him harder for animals to detect downwind. The hunter's gear receives the most thorough treatment of the day. Every stitch, every seam, every potential entry point for water gets special attention. You help with the simpler pieces, now confident enough in the technique to work somewhat independently. The difference between dry feet and wet feet can mean life or death on a winter hunt, the hunter tells you seriously as he watches you work. Few years back, a young hunter ignored Marta's advice, didn't get his boots properly treated, lost 2 toes to frostbite after they got soaked crossing a stream. Finally, late in the day, Goodwife Marta turns her attention to your father's boots. She examines them critically, noting the worn spots and cracked areas. These needed treatment months ago, she scolds mildly, but we can still save them. She selects ingredients carefully, creating a custom mixture for the damaged leather. First, she has you clean the boots thoroughly with a damp cloth, removing all dirt and old, flaking waterproofing. Now watch closely, she instructs. You'll need to do this for your family in the future. Her technique for the boots is slightly different. She heats the mixture more before application and works it into the leather with even more vigorous friction than before. The pressure is so intense that the leather actually warms from the effort. For damaged leather, we need deeper penetration, she explains. The mixture must reach through the entire thickness to restore flexibility and waterproofing. It takes nearly an hour to properly treat both boots. By the end, your arms burn with exhaustion, but the transformation is remarkable. The once stiff, cracked leather has become supple again, with a soft sheen that sheds water instantly when tested. They'll need a second treatment in a fortnight, Goodwife Marta says, setting the boots near the fire to cure. But this will keep them waterproof through the worst of winter if he's careful. As the day's work winds down, villagers return to collect their treated items. Each person tests their goods with the rainwater, nodding with satisfaction as droplets roll off instead of soaking in. You notice how each treated item maintains its original properties. Wool still feels like wool, leather like leather, but with the added resistance to water. Unlike modern plastic coatings that change how a material feels, this treatment enhances without fundamentally altering. One last thing before you go, Goodwife Marta says as you prepare to leave with your father's boots. She hands you a small clay pot with a tightly fitted lid. Inside is a portion of the waterproofing mixture for emergency repairs, she explains. If the boots begin to leak again before spring, warm this between your hands and work it into the problem area. Not as good as a proper treatment, but it will get him through until you can bring them back. You thank her and carefully pack the precious mixture in your bag alongside the boots. Come back when you have time, she adds. There's more to learn about protection from the elements, different mixtures for different seasons. Spring treatments need to repel insects as well as rain. Summer treatments need to allow more cooling. Winter treatments need more flexibility in extreme cold. Walking home as the day fades, you marvel at the sophistication of what you've learned. To an outsider, it might look like simply rubbing wax onto fabric, but you now understand the precise combinations, the specific application techniques, the careful curing process that turns simple ingredients into exceptional protection. Your modern rain jacket, waiting in your closet in 2025, will eventually degrade, its synthetic waterproofing failing after a few years. But the friction glaze system you've just learned has worked reliably for centuries, using only materials found in any forest. At home, your father examines his transformed boots with amazement. Better than when they were new, he admits, bending the now supple leather that was stiff and cracked this morning. That night, rain pounds harder against the thatch, but your thoughts aren't on leaks or dampness. Instead, you find yourself categorizing the village technologies you've learned so far, each one perfectly adapted to its purpose, each one sustainable in a way modern solutions often aren't. The consistent theme emerges again. These weren't primitive stopgaps waiting for better technology. They were sophisticated systems refined over generations to work perfectly with available materials. Not primitive at all, just perfectly adapted. Dawn breaks through thinning clouds, the rain finally spent after 3 days of steady downpour. Puddles reflect the grey-pink sky, and every surface drips with lingering moisture. Perfect timing for your father to test his newly waterproofed boots as he heads to the fields to assess flood damage. You're helping your mother hang sodden bedding to dry near the hearth when Master Wulfric appears at your door. "Good morning," he greets with unusual formality. "I've come to ask a favour." Your mother raises her eyebrows. The old keeper rarely makes personal requests. "My sister's son is ill in Oakwick," he explains. "I've prepared medicines, but I can't make the journey myself. My knees won't handle the forest paths after all this rain." He turns to you. "Would you be willing to deliver them? It's a day's journey there and back if you move quickly." Your mother looks concerned. Oakwick? With the streams likely flooding, and him going alone? "Not alone," Master Wulfric assures her. "He'll travel with Aldwin the forester. No one knows the woods better, especially after storms. You've heard of Aldwin. Everyone has. A solitary figure who spends more time in the forest than the village. Some call him strange, but all respect his unmatched knowledge of the wilderness. It would be good experience, Master Wulfric adds, for his training. Your mother reluctantly agrees, and within the hour you're prepared for the journey. Sturdy boots treated with Goodwife Marta's waterproofing, a small pack with bread and cheese, and Master Wulfric's precious bundle of medicines wrapped in oiled cloth. You meet Aldwin at the village edge. He's older than you expected, grey-bearded and weathered, with eyes so pale they're almost colourless. He carries a simple staff and wears a cloak that's patched so extensively it's impossible to tell its original colour. "The boys ready?" he asks Master Wulfric, hardly glancing at you. "He is, and willing to learn, if you're willing to teach." Aldwin grunts non-committally. "We'll see. Rain's stopped, but the forest will be treacherous. Streams high, paths washed out, mud slides on the ridge. Which is why I asked for you," Master Wulfric says, with surprising deference. "No one else would find the way today." Something unspoken passes between the two men. Aldwin nods once, then turns to you. "Keep up. Don't speak unless necessary. Listen when I tell you to listen." Without waiting for a response, he turns and strides toward the forest edge. You hurry after him, glancing back once to see Master Wulfric watching with an unreadable expression. The forest embraces you quickly, bare winter branches dripping overhead, undergrowth sodden and heavy. Aldwin moves, with surprising speed for his age, following what seems to be a clear path to you, at least until it simply ends, disappearing into a tangle of shrubs. Without hesitation, Aldwin veers left where you see no path at all, yet as you follow you realise he's tracking something invisible to your untrained eyes. An hour into the journey, you come to your first obstacle, a stream that's transformed into a rushing torrent. its banks overflowing with muddy water. The simple log bridge that normally spans it has been swept away. Aldwin stops, staring not at the water but upstream, his head tilted slightly. His eyes close for a moment, and you realize he's listening intently. After a long moment, he opens his eyes and turns to you. "We need to head upstream. About 200 paces, there's a narrowing where we can cross." "How do you know?" you ask, seeing nothing but unbroken forest in that direction. Instead of answering, he taps his ear. "Listen, not to the water here, but to how it sounds further up." You try to focus past the immediate rush of the flooded stream. At first, you hear nothing different, but then a subtle change in the water's voice, a higher pitch suggesting faster flow over a narrower channel. "I hear it," you say, surprised. "The sound changes." Aldwin nods. "The first hint of approval you've seen. Water talks if you know how to listen. Every stream has its own voice. Every change in its course creates a different song." You follow him upstream, and sure enough, the flooded stream narrows between two rocky outcroppings, creating a spot where fallen trees have created a natural, if precarious, bridge. "The forest changed in the storm," Aldwin explains as you carefully cross. "Landmarks moved, paths washed away, but the sounds, those just transform. Learn to read them, and you're never truly lost." The journey continues, and you notice how often Aldwin stops to listen, head tilted, eyes sometimes closed, absorbing information you can only guess at. He never consults the position of the sun or looks for moss on trees, those navigation techniques you've heard about. Instead, he seems to navigate entirely by sound. When you stop for a brief rest and a bite of bread, your curiosity finally overcomes his instruction for silence. How do you know which way to go just by listening? Aldwin considers you for a moment, perhaps deciding if the question merits an answer. Finally, he speaks. "The forest isn't silent. It's constantly telling you where you are, if you train your ears to understand." He gestures around. "Every area has its sound signature. The birds of this oak grove differ from those half a mile east where the pines begin. Wind through oak leaves creates different tones than through pine needles." You listen, trying to discern what he means. Beyond the dripping water, you hear bird calls, the rustle of leaves, distant creaks of branches. "Close your eyes," he instructs. "Tell me what direction the nearest stream lies." You close your eyes, focusing on sound alone. The trickling of water seems to come from multiple directions after the rain. I'm not sure," you admit. Listen deeper, not to the rainwater dripping from leaves. That's everywhere. Listen for the constant flow, the sustained voice of moving water. You try again, filtering out the immediate drips and drops. After a long moment of concentration, you detect it, a steady whisper beneath the other sounds coming from your right. "That way," you say, pointing. Aldwin nods. "Good. About 300 paces in that direction. Small stream, flows year-round. Now, what else do you hear?" You concentrate harder. "Birds. 4 different calls." "And what does that tell you?" You hesitate, unsure. "The finch you hear doesn't live in pine forest. The woodpecker works on oak and beech, not evergreens. The jay warns of open ground nearby." He taps his staff on the earth. "Bird sounds tell you what trees surround you, even in fog or darkness when you can't see them." The lesson continues as you resume walking. Aldwin points out how the sound of your footsteps changes based on the soil, hollow on pine needle beds, solid on clay, damp and muffled on leaf litter, each sound signature telling you what you're walking on without needing to look down. "In fog or darkness," he explains, "this knowledge means survival. Many travelers have walked in circles because they trusted only their eyes, which easily deceive. You come to a place where the path splits. Without hesitation, Aldwin takes the right fork. When you ask how he chose, his answer surprises you. Listen to the bird sounds ahead on each path. The left fork leads toward a hawk's territory. Smaller birds are silent there. The right path has chattering finches, meaning no predators nearby. As the day progresses, you begin to notice sounds you'd previously ignored, the difference between wind in various types of trees, how sound carries differently up and downhill, how moving water at various distances creates distinct acoustic layers in the forest. Midday brings another challenge. Dense fog suddenly rolling in, reducing visibility to mere feet ahead. While you feel a spike of anxiety, Aldwin seems completely untroubled. "Now we truly use our ears," he says, almost pleased at the development. "Watch this." He cups his hands around his mouth and makes a sharp calling sound. The noise echoes through the fog, bouncing back from unseen obstacles. He listens intently to the returning echoes, then nods. Open ground 30 paces ahead. Then forest again. We're on the right path. "You can tell that just from an echo?" you ask, amazed. "Or sound reveals what eyes cannot. The echo pattern tells me there's a clearing ahead, then trees again. The quality of the echo reveals distance and density. He teaches you to make your own calls, different sounds for different purposes. A sharp clap works best for detecting nearby objects. A sustained call reveals more distant features. He even shows you how to strike your walking stick against a tree trunk to create a particular resonance that carries well through fog. You practice as you walk, creating sounds and listening to their return. Gradually, impossibly, you begin to develop a rudimentary sound map of your surroundings, even with limited visibility. Merchants and pilgrims who travelled regularly developed this skill out of necessity, Aldwin explains. They created mental sound maps of their routes, how different regions should sound in different seasons. The birds of summer create different soundscapes than those of winter. The wind voice changes with the density of leaves on trees. You think about how different this is from modern navigation with GPS and maps, technologies that fail when batteries die or visibility drops. Sound navigation works in darkness, fog, even with eyes closed. Late afternoon brings an unexpected revelation. Aldwin stops abruptly, head tilted in that now familiar listening pose. After a moment, he changes direction, leading you up a gentle slope you wouldn't have chosen. "There's water ahead that wasn't there before the storm," he explains. "A new stream formed from the rains. We need to adjust our route." "How can you possibly hear a stream that small from this distance?" you ask incredulously. "Water has a voice that carries further than most sounds," he explains, "especially moving water. The human ear, properly trained, can detect streams from over a mile away in quiet conditions. The specific frequencies travel through forest or field with minimal degradation. You concentrate but can hear nothing beyond the immediate forest sounds." "You'll develop the skill with practice," he assures you. Some travellers could even estimate the size of a water source by its acoustic signature, vital knowledge when searching for safe drinking water. As you crest the hill, you see he was right. A new stream has formed in what was likely a dry gully before the storms, cutting directly across the path you would have taken. His hearing alone detected it long before visual confirmation was possible. A startling moment comes when Aldwin suddenly pulls you back just as you're about to cross what appears to be solid ground. "Listen," he commands. You hear nothing unusual at first, then detect a subtle difference in how sound resonates from the earth ahead. "Bog," Aldwin confirms. "The ground's saturated. Step there and you'll sink to your knees, maybe deeper." He strikes his staff against the ground, listening to the subtle differences in how the sound resonates through solid versus waterlogged earth. Following this acoustic guide, he leads you safely around the hazard. Most impressive of all is when he predicts a brief rain shower nearly an hour before the first drops fall. Weather speaks before it arrives, he explains. Certain bird calls change, insect sounds shift, the way distant noises carry warns of approaching weather fronts. You focus on the forest sounds, trying to detect what he hears. There's a subtle change in the acoustic environment, a dampening of certain tones, a clarity to others. When the rain indeed arrives as predicted, you understand it wasn't mystical foresight, but empirical knowledge based on careful observation. Hunters and shepherds developed this skill to find shelter before storms hit, Aldwin explains as you wait out the brief shower under a dense pine. Critical knowledge when exposed on mountainsides or open fields. By late afternoon, you reach Oakwick. The small settlement appears through thinning trees, smoke rising from chimneys in the grey daylight. You deliver Master Wulfric's medicines to his grateful sister, whose son indeed looks terribly ill with fever. "Will you stay the night?" she offers. "It's late to start back." "We have enough daylight," Aldwin answers before you can speak. "Better to return while the rain holds off." He glances at the sky in a way that makes you suspect he hears something about approaching weather that you don't yet perceive. The return journey feels different. Though the same distance, you travel faster, more confidently. You find yourself listening in a new way, not just hearing sounds, but interpreting them, creating a mental map of your surroundings through your ears rather than eyes alone. When darkness falls before you reach the village, Aldwin seems entirely untroubled. While your vision becomes increasingly useless, his navigation remains sure, guided by the acoustic landscape. This is when sound truly becomes your primary sense, he explains as you walk through growing darkness. Medieval travelers often journeyed at night when necessary, using sound to avoid hazards and stay on path. You notice how he periodically creates noise, clapping, singing, striking wood against wood to read the returning echoes. The information gathered prevents walking in circles or heading toward dangerous terrain. In your world, he says unexpectedly, people have forgotten how to listen. They walk with artificial sounds pumped directly into their ears, blocking the very information that would guide them naturally. You're startled by the reference to modern habits. It breaks the historical immersion you've been experiencing, but before you can question it, he continues. The human ear can distinguish over 1,500 different sound variations, a capability largely abandoned in your visual-dominant modern world. For today's hikers dependent on electronic navigation that can fail, this medieval technique offers a navigation system that works in darkness, fog, or when batteries die. There's something odd about his phrasing, almost as if he's quoting something, but the wisdom is undeniable. As the village lights finally appear through the trees, Aldwin stops for a final lesson. Sound navigation wasn't primitive, he says quietly. It was a sophisticated use of a sense we've allowed to atrophy precisely when we might need it most. Master Wulfric is waiting at his hut, seemingly unsurprised by your late return. Did he learn? He asks Aldwin. He listened, the forester responds cryptically. Time will tell if he heard. That night, lying in bed, you find yourself listening to your home in a new way. The subtle creaks of the wooden structure cooling in the night air, the different tones of family members breathing in sleep, the way sounds from outside filter through thatch differently than through the wooden walls. A world of information you've always had access to but never truly heard. Your modern headphones wait for you in 2025, ready to block out the acoustic environment completely. But now you wonder what vital information they might be silencing. Natural warnings, direction finding, weather prediction, all available through a sense we've allowed to diminish. Not primitive knowledge at all, just a different way of knowing. Morning comes with stiff muscles and lingering tiredness from yesterday's journey. You rise slowly, legs aching from miles of forest paths. Your mind, however, feels strangely alert, cataloguing the sounds of early morning in a way you never noticed before. The gentle pat of your mother's hands kneading bread dough, the specific creak of your father's footsteps on the packed earth floor, the subtle differences in how the wind sounds through the thatch roof versus around the wooden door frame. Awareness blooms like a new sense, as if Aldwin's teachings awakened something dormant within you. You've been summoned to the village circle tonight, your father mentions casually over breakfast. The remembering begins at sunset. The remembering, you ask, unfamiliar with the term. Your parents exchange glances. We should have told him sooner, your mother murmurs. Told me what? Your father sets down his wooden spoon. It happens every winter solstice. The village gathers to maintain the memory chains. His explanation tells you nothing, but something in his tone suggests importance beyond ordinary village gatherings. Master Wulfric will explain, he adds. He sent word that you should join him at midday. He says it's time you understood the final system. The final system. The phrase stirs both curiosity and a strange sense of culmination. You've learned about fire preservation, living hedges, smoke chambers, clay vessels, waterproofing, and sound navigation. What remains? Master Wulfric isn't at his hilltop hut when you arrive. Instead, you find a simple note. Meet at the Elder Oak, midday. The Elder Oak stands at the village centre, ancient and massive. Generations have gathered beneath its spreading branches for announcements, celebrations, and judgments. When you arrive, Master Wulfric sits on a bench beneath it, talking quietly with several of the village elders. Mistress Edith of the Hedge Weavers is there. So is Goodwife Aylwood from the Smoking Barn, Mistress Hildegard the Clay Worker, Goodwife Marta of the Waterproofing. Even Aldwin the Forester has emerged from his woodland solitude for this gathering. Ah, the apprentice arrives, Master Wulfric says, gesturing you forward. Sit. Today you learn what binds all other knowledge together. You take a seat on the cold ground, aware of the scrutiny from these keepers of village wisdom. Something solemn hangs in the air, a seriousness you haven't felt in your previous lessons. What do all the systems you've learned have in common? Master Wulfric asks without preamble. You consider carefully. They're all methods of survival. Yes, but deeper. What allows them to exist at all? You think about the fire bundles, the living hedges, the smoke preservation, the clay vessels, the waterproofing techniques, the sound navigation, each sophisticated, each refined over generations. Knowledge, you venture, specific knowledge passed down over time. Master Wulfric nods, satisfied, and therein lies the most critical system of all. Before books were common, before most could read or write, how was such complex knowledge preserved? How did we ensure that critical information survived generation after generation? The question hangs in the air. You've never really considered it before. Tonight, he continues, you'll witness the most sophisticated medieval information technology, the Human Memory Network, a system for preserving vital knowledge without a single page or screen. Throughout the afternoon, the elders take turns explaining the framework of what you'll witness tonight. Their usual practical demeanour has shifted to something more reverent, more ceremonial. All the systems you've learned, Mistress Edith explains, depend on precise knowledge, exactly how deep to cut a hedge stem, exactly which wood creates which type of smoke, exactly how much pressure to apply in waterproofing. If this knowledge is lost, the physical skills become useless. But writing is vulnerable, adds Goodwife Aylward. Books burn, parchment rots, ink fades, and most critical of all, few can read them. So our ancestors developed something more resilient, continues Master Wulfric. They created a living knowledge system using the most reliable storage medium available, distributed human memory. The concept is difficult to grasp at first. Master Wulfric elaborates. Critical survival knowledge wasn't entrusted to a single elder or expert. It was deliberately spread across the community through specialized memory techniques. He gestures to the gathered knowledge keepers. Each of us holds pieces of the whole. Mistress Edith knows which plants to use in each section of hedge and why. I know the precise preparation of fire bundles for different purposes. Goodwife Marta knows the exact proportions for waterproofing different materials. But what if someone dies unexpectedly, you ask? Wouldn't their knowledge die with them? Master Wulfric smiles. That's why we have the knowledge chain. Every critical piece of information is known by at least 3 people from different families, different ages. No single death, or even several, can break the chain completely. And tonight, adds Mistress Hildegard, we renew those chains, strengthen them, pass knowledge to new keepers when needed. As afternoon slides toward evening, villagers begin gathering in the central square. Children run about excitedly, unlike during normal village meetings where they're typically excluded. In fact, you notice children seem central to the preparation. They arrange benches in a specific pattern, place torches in precise locations. The physical arrangement matters, explains Master Wulfric, seeing your curiosity. The layout itself contains memory cues, where people sit, the pattern of torches, all designed to trigger specific memories. Mistress Edith adds, your ancestors understood that knowledge isn't just in the mind, it's in the body, in movement, in physical space. By recreating the same conditions each year, we strengthen the memory pathways. As twilight deepens, the gathering takes on a festival atmosphere. Food is shared, a barrel of special ale is tapped, brewed specifically for this occasion, you're told, with herbs that sharpen memory and loosen tongues. When full darkness falls, Master Wulfric stands before the assembled village. Conversation's quiet, and anticipation fills the air. The remembering begins, he announces, as it has since our grandparents' gathered here beneath this same oak. What follows both surprises and mesmerizes you. The first performance comes from an unlikely source. 3 children no more than 8 years old. They step forward and begin a singing game, moving in a circle while clapping a complex rhythm. The song's lyrics initially seem like nonsense, until you listen closer and realize they're actually listing every edible plant in the forest, in order of spring appearance. First comes nettle, bright and stinging, pick with gloves when birds are singing. Dandelion next appears, eat the root to calm your fears. The song continues, covering dozens of plants with specific details about identification, preparation, and medicinal properties, all encoded in a children's rhyming game. The children learn it as play, whispers Master Wulfric, but encoded within is knowledge that could prevent starvation if crops fail. Next comes a group of young women who perform a weaving dance, their movements mimicking the process of creating cloth. As they dance, they sing instructions in precise detail, which plants yield fibre, when to harvest them, how to process each type, which weaves suit, which purposes. The dance and song together form a complete technical manual, memorized through movement and melody. An elderly couple performs a call and response chant about weather prediction, cloud patterns, bird behaviors, wind changes that foretell specific weather events. The rhythmic nature makes any error immediately obvious, ensuring accurate transmission. Swallows high, clear sky remains. Swallows low, prepare for rains. Oak leaves south, the drought will come. Oak leaves north, get building done. The pattern continues for hours. Different groups perform different knowledge pieces: hunting techniques, childcare wisdom, construction methods, disease treatments. Some are solemn recitations, others lively performances. Some involve the entire village, others just specific family lines. Notice how certain knowledge belongs to certain families, Master Wulfric points out. The smithing knowledge passes through the blacksmith's line, the midwife's wisdom through maternal lines. Other knowledge, like edible plants, weather signs, belongs to everyone. You begin to understand the sophistication of the system. It isn't random oral tradition, but a carefully designed information technology using rhythm, rhyme, melody, movement, and social structure to preserve and transmit critical knowledge. The system has built-in error correction, explains Mistress Hildegard during a brief pause between performances. If someone makes a mistake in the recitation, the rhythm or rhyme immediately sounds wrong. Others can correct it before the error becomes permanent. Midway through the evening comes something you recognize, a song about fire preservation. The lyrics detail every step of creating fire bundles, maintaining embers, transferring flame. You realize it's exactly what Master Wulfric taught you, but encoded in a form that makes it nearly impossible to forget. Tomorrow, you'd remember perhaps half of what I taught you about firekeeping, Master Wulfric says, but if I taught you that song instead, you'd remember nearly all of it, even years later. As the night progresses, you notice how certain physical objects are incorporated into the performances. A particular carved stick passes from hand to hand during the farming knowledge recitations. A special coloured stone circulates during the hunting songs. Memory anchors, explains Goodwife Aylward. The object itself triggers the associated knowledge. Some hunters can recall entire migration patterns just by handling their specific memory stone. Most fascinating is how the entire village landscape itself serves as a memory palace. During one recitation about boundaries and land rights, the performers point to specific trees, rocks, and streams, some visible from the gathering, others only in shared mental imagery. The location of certain markers triggers specific memories, Master Wulfric explains. The ancient oak reminds us of the founding story. The bent willow by the stream marks the boundary with the next village. The landscape literally contains our knowledge. Children participate throughout the night, sometimes leading, sometimes following, but always included. Now you understand why. They're being systematically incorporated into the knowledge network through games that embed critical information. A simple counting rhyme might actually teach which mushrooms are safe to eat, Mistress Edith tells you. A jumping game preserves the proper sequence for a complex task like tanning leather or preserving grain. Near midnight comes what Master Wulfric calls the redundancy check. Different groups recite overlapping knowledge in different forms. The same crucial survival information about treating winter fever appears in a somber chant from the elders, a lively song from young adults, and a clapping game from children. The most vital knowledge is stored in multiple forms, he explains. A song, a story, a physical arrangement, a game, ensuring that even if one transmission method fails, others preserve the knowledge. You watch, transfixed, as the village performs its living library. This isn't simple storytelling around a fire. It's a human-centered information technology more resilient than any book or digital storage. Books burn, Master Wulfric says softly as the night winds down. Servers fail, but distributed knowledge spread across dozens of minds can survive almost anything. Plague, war, famine, even deliberate suppression. The official remembering concludes near dawn, though smaller groups continue recitations and performances as they drift homeward. Master Wulfric gestures for you to remain as others leave. Tonight you witnessed, but next year you'll participate, he tells you solemnly. As my apprentice, you'll become part of the knowledge chain for fire preservation. 3 others already hold that knowledge. You'll be the 4th, providing additional security. The responsibility feels weighty but right. You think of your smartphone waiting in 2025 with its fragile glass screen and battery that dies without constant charging, all its stored knowledge useless without electricity, without the complex infrastructure that supports it. Compare that to what you've just witnessed, a resilient, distributed knowledge network requiring no technology beyond the human mind and body, designed to survive almost any catastrophe. What happens if the Lord or Church forbids these gatherings? You ask suddenly, realizing the political vulnerability. Master Wulfric smiles. Another layer of the system's brilliance. The same knowledge exists in multiple forms. If formal gatherings are banned, the children's games continue, preserving the core information. If songs are forbidden, physical memory anchors remain. The system adapts to persecution by hiding in plain sight, in lullabies, in games, in everyday activities that no authority thinks to ban. You walk home as dawn breaks, exhausted but mind-buzzing. Modern education suddenly seems strangely inefficient, focusing on writing and reading rather than these powerful memory techniques that kept knowledge alive for centuries without a single page. Your parents are still awake waiting by the fire. You've seen the remembering, your father says. It's not a question. I never knew, you admit, all these years, and I never realized what was happening in those songs, those games. Your mother smiles. That's partly the point. The knowledge hides in joy, in community. Precious things worth knowing are worth making beautiful. You think about modern survival preppers stockpiling books that might never be read. How different from this approach, storing critical knowledge where it's most useful, in human minds, ready to apply at a moment's notice. That night, drifting towards sleep despite the morning sun, you reflect on everything you've learned. Fire preservation, living hedges, smoke chambers, clay technologies, waterproofing, sound navigation, each sophisticated in its own right. But the memory network that preserved them, that was the ultimate resilient information system. Not primitive at all, perhaps the most advanced technology of all, just not in a form we modern people recognize as technology. Medieval knowledge networks weren't simple oral traditions. They were the original cloud storage, distributed, redundant, and remarkably resilient. Days pass in a blur after the remembering. Winter tightens its grip on the village, bringing short days and long nights. The knowledge you've gained over these past weeks shifts from abstract learning to daily necessity as the harshest season takes hold. You rise before dawn, carefully transferring an ember from your fire bundle to kindle the morning fire. The technique Master Wulfric taught you now feels as natural as breathing. No more struggling with flint and steel in the freezing darkness. No more wasted time or precious tinder. Just reliable flame exactly when needed. Your father's boots, treated with Goodwife Marta's waterproofing, keep his feet dry despite the snow and slush. When a small crack appears in the right heel, you confidently warm a small amount of the mixture she gave you between your palms, working it into the leather with the friction technique she taught. The repair holds perfectly against the winter wet. Food stores remain fresh longer than in previous years now that your family understands the principles of smoke preservation. The techniques Goodwife Aylward demonstrated have become part of your household's practice. Even the humble herbs hanging from your ceiling rafters last longer, preserve better, having been properly smoke-cured. Your mother uses one of Mistress Hildegard's cooling emporas to keep milk fresh an extra day. No small thing when winter limits the cow's production. At night, clay heat batteries warm your sleeping area, reducing the need for constant fire maintenance. When your young cousin falls ill with winter fever, you recognize the specific birch bark treatment needed. Knowledge from the children's singing game at the Remembering. The information was there all along, you realize, hidden in play, in songs, in community ritual. One particularly bitter morning, Master Wulfric finds you helping repair a section of the living hedge damaged by heavy snow. Your training continues well, he observes, watching you carefully bend a young hawthorn to the horizontal position Mistress Edith taught you. You're becoming a keeper of systems. I still have much to learn, you admit, securing the bent stem with practiced movements. Always, he agrees. But you understand the principle now, how all these systems work together rather than separately. You pause in your work, considering his words. He's right. The past weeks have revealed not just individual survival techniques, but their interconnections, how each supports and enhances the others. The living hedge provides materials for baskets that store smoke-preserved foods. The hedge also shelters certain birds that control insects that would otherwise damage grain. That same grain, properly stored in clay preservation vessels, feeds the village through winter, providing strength for hedge maintenance and waterproofing work. Nothing stands alone. Everything connects. Come, Master Wulfric says, interrupting your thoughts. There's someone you should meet. He leads you away from the village, following a path you've never taken before. The frozen landscape glitters under weak winter sunlight as you climb a gentle slope toward what appears to be a small, well-maintained hut set apart from other dwellings. Who lives here, Yue? The Memory Keeper, Master Wulfric answers with unexpected reverence. Our eldest, our wisest. She rarely joins village gatherings anymore. Her strength is preserved for more important work. You approach the solitary dwelling with growing curiosity. Smoke rises from its chimney, and the path to its door is freshly cleared of snow despite its isolated location. Master Wulfric knocks gently. The door opens to reveal a woman so ancient her face resembles weathered parchment etched with countless lines of experience. Despite her apparent age, her eyes remain sharp, taking your measure with a single glance. "This is the new apprentice?" she asks, voice surprisingly strong. "He is," Master Wulfric confirms. "He's learned the 7 systems." She nods once, then steps aside. "Come in then. The cold does my old bones no favours." The interior of her hut strikes you immediately as different from other village dwellings. Every wall holds shelves lined with objects, stones of unusual shapes, bundles of herbs tied with coloured thread, small carved figures, clay tokens painted with symbols. A large loom dominates one corner, weaving patterns more complex than any you've seen before. The old woman settles into a chair near the fire, gesturing for you both to sit. "So," she says without preamble, "you've learned about fire-keeping, living barriers, smoke preservation, clay vessels, waterproofing, sound navigation, and memory networks." "Yes, mistress," you answer, surprised at her directness. "But do you understand what truly made them work?" she asks, studying your face. You hesitate, uncertain what answer she seeks. Integration, she says before you can respond. These weren't separate skills. They were one seamless approach to life. Nothing wasted. Everything with multiple purposes. Systems working together rather than in isolation. She reaches for a wooden cup, sipping what smells like herbal tea before continuing. Today you have... what do they call them? She glances at Master Wulfric. Specialists, he supplies. Yes, specialists. She says the word as if it tastes strange. One person knows only farming, another only building, another only healing, knowledge broken into tiny fragments, each person holding just one piece. You think about modern society, where indeed most people specialize deeply in narrow fields. How different from what you've witnessed here, where knowledge boundaries blur and overlap. Our ancestors couldn't afford such luxury, she continues. The farmer needed to be part healer, part builder, part preserver. The hunter needed to understand plants as well as animals. Everyone needed to grasp how one system affected another. Master Wulfric nods in agreement. The modern world calls this primitive. We call it wholeness. Show me what you've learned, the old woman says suddenly, fixing you with her penetrating gaze, not just the techniques but the connections between them. Put on the spot, you gather your thoughts. The fire bundle system preserves flame for the smoker, which preserves food for the village, which provides strength for maintaining the living hedge, which provides materials and protection. You continue tracing connections between the systems, how clay vessels store what smoke preserves, how waterproofing protects what the other systems create, how sound navigation ensures safe passage between communities, allowing knowledge exchange. The memory keeper listens intently, nodding occasionally. When you finish, she seems satisfied. You begin to see, she says, not 7 separate systems, but one integrated approach to life. She rises with surprising agility for her age, moving to a large wooden chest near her bed. From it, she removes a small leather-bound book, a startlingly incongruous object in this world of oral tradition. "Can you read?" she asks. You nod, somewhat surprised by the question. "Good. Few can." She hands you the book. This contains diagrams, recipes, measurements for all the systems you've learned, written by my grandmother's grandmother and added to by each generation. You accept the book with reverence, understanding its value in a world where written records are rare. "Why show me this?" you ask. "I thought the memory networks preserved knowledge without writing." She smiles slightly. "Redundancy, child. The same knowledge exists in multiple forms. The memory network is primary. It lives, it adapts, it cannot be destroyed by a single fire or flood. But this," she taps the book, "provides precision when needed. Exact measurements, specific proportions." Master Wulfric adds, "The two approaches complement each other, memory for resilience, writing for precision." You carefully open the ancient book. Inside, delicate drawings illustrate hedge-laying techniques, fire bundle construction, clay vessel designs. Marginalia, notes, refinements added over generations. This contains the collective wisdom of 15 generations, the memory keeper says quietly. Not just how to do things, but why they work, the principles behind the practices. You realize you're holding something beyond value, a medieval technical manual preserving knowledge that modern society has largely forgotten. You may study it here, under my guidance, she continues, not to memorize by rote, but to understand the thinking of those who develop these systems. The rest of the day passes in quiet study. The memory keeper explains diagrams, answers questions, connects techniques to principles. Master Wulfric occasionally adds insights from his own experience. The winter sun traces its short arc and begins to set while you absorb, knowledge both ancient and startlingly relevant. As twilight approaches, the memory keeper closes the book and returns it carefully to its chest. "You asked earlier why I showed you this," she says, settling again by the fire. "The answer is simple. Someone must remember." Her gaze fixes on the flames. "A time may come when these systems are forgotten, when people believe there is only one way to live, dependent on mechanisms they don't understand and can't repair." You think about your own modern world, so technologically advanced yet so vulnerable to disruption. How many people know how to preserve food without refrigeration, how to find direction without GPS, how to waterproof without synthetic chemicals? Our ancestors weren't just surviving despite their limitations, the memory keeper says, echoing your thoughts. In many ways, they were thriving because of them. Her words strike you deeply. The constraints of medieval life forced innovation within natural boundaries, working with materials at hand, developing systems that could be maintained locally, creating technologies that lasted generations rather than years. The most powerful medieval survival technique wasn't any specific skill, Master Wulfric adds. It was their integrated approach to life. As darkness falls completely, you make preparations to leave. The memory keeper rises once more, this time retrieving a small object from among her collected treasures, a polished stone pendant on a simple leather cord. "For the new keeper," she says, placing it in your hand. "A memory anchor. When you touch it, remember what you've learned, not just the methods, but the mindset." You slip the cord over your head, feeling the smooth stone warm against your skin. Something about its weight feels significant, as if you're accepting a tradition extending back through countless generations. Walking home through the winter night, Master Wulfric is unusually talkative. Each generation thinks itself the pinnacle of progress, he muses. Each believes previous generations were primitive, simple-minded. It's a conceit as old as humanity itself. The stars overhead seem especially bright against the black winter sky, the same stars your ancestors navigated by, told stories about, used to time their planting and harvesting. The greatest survival lesson, Master Wulfric continues, is humility, the willingness to learn from those we've been taught to view as primitive. At home, your family has already retired for the night. You kindle a small flame from your fire bundle, lighting a rush dip to navigate the dark interior. The humble light casts moving shadows across the familiar space, a space that somehow looks different now that you understand the systems that maintain it. Your sleeping area waits, a clay heat battery already warming the blankets, your mother's thoughtfulness. As you settle in, the pendant rests against your chest, a physical reminder of your journey through medieval knowledge. Sleep comes gently, carrying you through the boundary between your medieval experience and modern reality. The pendant seems to fade away, but the knowledge, that remains. Back in your comfortable modern bed, you find yourself thinking differently about the systems that support your daily life. The electric light you switch off without thought, the central heating that maintains perfect temperature without effort, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the smartphone charging on your nightstand. Convenience, certainly, but also dependence, vulnerability. If those systems failed, how many people know the alternatives? How many could create fire without matches or lighters? How many could preserve food without refrigeration? How many could navigate without GPS or even paper maps? The medieval villagers you've come to know would view our modern world with awe, certainly, but perhaps also with concern at how completely we've outsourced basic survival skills to systems we neither understand nor can repair. Their village wasn't just surviving despite limitations. In many ways, it was thriving because of them. Constraints forced innovation, cooperation, and a deep understanding of natural processes that many of us have lost. The most sophisticated aspect of medieval survival wasn't any particular technique. Impressive as each one was, it was the integrated approach to life where nothing was wasted, where everything had multiple purposes, where systems worked in harmony rather than isolation. This wasn't primitive thinking, it was systems thinking at its most sophisticated. So perhaps the question isn't whether these medieval techniques still work. They do. The question is whether we're humble enough to learn from those we've been taught to view as primitive. Because in a world of increasing uncertainty, climate change, energy concerns, supply chain fragility, the most dangerous thing might be our modern arrogance, the belief that we've outgrown the wisdom of those who thrived without any of the systems we now depend on. As you drift towards sleep in your comfortable modern bed, the boundary between past and present blurs. The knowledge you've gained feels like a bridge between worlds, ancient wisdom with startling relevance for contemporary challenges. The fire bundle's elegant simplicity, the living hedge's multifunctional design, the smoke preservation's chemistry, the clay vessel's thermal engineering, the waterproofing's material science, the sound navigation's sensory awareness, the memory network's information technology. None were primitive. All were sophisticated adaptations to their time and place. All worked with natural materials and processes rather than against them. All could be created, maintained, and passed down without complex global supply chains or rare materials. Medieval people weren't just surviving despite their limitations. In many ways, they were thriving because of them, and that might be the most important survival lesson of all.